Hello and welcome, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're calling in from. We're so happy to have you here. I'm Hunter. I'm one of your hosts and moderators here at Power to Fly, and welcome to this chat and learn. I'm very excited to talk to our guests. We have two speakers today, and we also have two people from behind this, from the company as well, that'll be talking in the chat. So we have an awesome panel today to answer your questions. So we have a good one. Before we jump in, let's just do a little bit of housekeeping here. As we get started, please feel free to turn your cameras on, enjoy the fun. You don't have to worry about looking Instagram ready. Just sit back, enjoy. It's a great time to get a little face-to-face time with our speakers. And also, as this is something you get to participate in and ask questions, it's always lovely to put a name and a question to a face. We will be recording this, so you can't watch the rewatch in just a few days. We'll be emailing you that. And you can also find it on our YouTube channel, and you can feel free to share it with other folks that you think might be interested in it. And you can see our handle there is at Power to Fly Chat and Learns. And as this is going, feel free to write questions in the chat at any point. We do have a list of pre-submitted questions, and also we will be peppering in your questions live. So as anything sparks of interest to you, you have a question or a comment, feel free to drop that in the public chat. Please keep in mind that this is a safe space, so be mindful that we would all like to have a wonderful time. So just keep that in mind as we're all in the room together. And if you have any questions that you would like to ask anonymously, you can DM me. So if you go over to the chat and you select my name, Hunter C, then you can write me a message privately and I can ask that question for you on your behalf anonymously. You can also ask Erica, Power to Fly Chat and Learn, or either of our speakers. That is also welcome. But I am happy to ask questions for you on your behalf. Or if anything comes up, any concerns, that's another way you can reach out and let us know, and we will hopefully take care of your needs as swiftly as possible. And you can follow us on all the things at Power to Fly on all the social medias. And you can share all the links and hashtags and reposts. You know how to do it. We're all pros at this point, I think. Okay, so without further ado, ServiceNow is our company today. I'm so excited to be able to chat with them. And our first person I'd like to introduce from ServiceNow here is Paloma. And Paloma is the Director of Solutions Consulting at ServiceNow with over 15 years of experience in enterprise software and SaaS and information security. Since 2015, Paloma initiated, developed, and executed a very successful customer C-level forum. This exclusive event had an increase of female participation and has evolved to become a great platform to help influence innovation decisions of the future through an online technology strategy and executive tracks. A women's champion, blogger, and active participant in panels and events that encourage the young generation to take on technical roles. And then we also have Shakira, has over 15 years of experience in technology sales from software, consultancy, recruitment, and delivery. The majority of her time has been spent within enterprise software, helping her clients transform their digital experience both internally and externally to their organization. Now, Shakira is passionate about driving an inclusive and diverse culture within her organization and is an avid and keen mentor, which is so important. And we'll talk more about that as well, I'm sure. So Paloma and Shakira, welcome. I'll start with you. Hello, Paloma. How are you today?
Hi, thank you. It's an honor to be here. I look forward to having this conversation with Shakira today.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. And Shakira, welcome. So happy to have you here. How are you?
Yeah, lovely to meet you. Thanks for having us both.
Absolutely. So friends, as I mentioned in the intro here, the way this is going to work is I have a list of pre-submitted questions that a lot of y'all wrote in advance. So thank you. We've put those questions into a doc. They've been anonymized, so I don't know who wrote the question, just FYI. So if you hear your question and you're happy to hear it, feel free to give a shout out in the chat. That's welcome. And if you have any questions, like I said, that come up over the next 55 minutes, you can ask them in the chat, and we will ask. I can shine a light on them and ask them on your behalf. And we also have our two friends also from ServiceNow that'll be answering some questions in the chat. So very, very active next hour, which is pretty cool. So let's kick off a question, Shakira and Paloma, that we had pre-submitted, and we can start with, we can do this one. Some of these we'll do for both of you, and some I think might we can do for one and the other. So this one we'll kick off with both of you, and Shakira, we can start with you. Somebody asked, what career moves or decisions got you into sales leadership role? So you can also tell us a little bit about your journey here, which we'd love to hear.
Yeah, sure. So if I talk about my experience at ServiceNow specifically, so I was 5 years as what we call an IC, which is an individual contributor. I loved doing that role. I loved the independence of being like a salesperson. I kind of led and orchestrated virtual teams, but I really loved being responsible for myself. And I kind of was happily, merrily doing that. And then I decided to have my first child. And that was kind of the pivotal moment for me in changing my career to become a sales leader. Full disclosure, I think I wouldn't have been the sales leader I am now, which I think is a much more empathetic leader had I been a leader when I was an individual contributor. That doesn't mean that I think that people who are sales reps and not parents are not empathetic. What I mean is, me as an individual, I didn't have the empathy that I have now as a mother when I was an individual contributor. Therefore, I think my leadership journey was boosted and started because I'd had just a new empathy for people after becoming a mum. And that was kind of like the right time for me to step into leadership. So that was kind of a pivotal moment for me. And I'm always really proud to share, because I think it's really important about ServiceNow's culture and me and my own journey, that I was promoted on my second month of maternity leave into that leadership role. So I came back into the business as a leader. And yeah, it was a new experience, new challenges, but I definitely was way more empathetic with humans and life after going through the trials and tribulations of being a first-time parent.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for also touching on the culture that you were drawn to at ServiceNow, and we can get more into that as well over the next hour. So thank you so much, Shakira. Paloma, how about you? What career moves and decisions got you into sales leadership roles?
Well, that's great to hear, Shakira. I mean, I guess I would love to have a great story that someone has told me, hey, you're going to be a great pre-sales leader. Instead, I always felt that pre-sales was a natural progression within my capabilities. So I had a very technical background, I enjoy the business aspects. So I wanted to combine the two. So I didn't know the pre-sales or social consulting role existed. So I asked a few people around me to give me some tips. And no one ever said to me, you're going to be very great at this. I had to take the risk. And at the time, I was working as a service manager, post-sales client service manager. And then I was uncovering opportunities with my clients. And I remember that my clients, they were asking for demos. And I felt very frustrated when they're asking for demos. I wanted to do the demo myself. So that's how kind of my pre-sales journey started. My lessons learned has been, sometimes if you feel a particular job is a good fit for you, keep persevering, because someone will give you that opportunity to shine at some point. So after spending a few years in social consulting, I decided to complete an MBA to kind of broaden my knowledge around business, and that's why I acquired my first leadership position. And it all happened at the same time. And Shakira mentioned this. I wanted to have a family, and I wanted to be a leader. for me happen at the same time. Quite tough road, but it's often the case. So for the last 4 years, I've been managing pre-sales teams. And the way I would describe my role is I like to create a movement with my team, with my network, with my customers, bringing people together to help them achieve both their personal and professional goals.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. And we could put like a banner up today that says from Paloma, that says, keep persevering. I think that's a good motto for us to keep in mind. So thank you for that. Also shine a light on some of the chat here. You know, we got some questions coming in. Erica is also posting that you can follow ServiceNow. When we did the intro here, you saw that screenshot of their landing page at Power to Fly. So if you go over to powerfly.com/company/ServiceNow, you can see awesome resources, all the job listings and other videos and content, and just lots of great stuff there. So feel free to check that out, and feel free to keep those questions coming. Okay, friends. So another great question that we have here are, what are some of the biggest challenges women face in the sales industry? And what challenges have you faced during your professional career? So this is a huge question. I feel like we could spend the next hour on this question alone, but unfortunately, there's many more, or fortunately, there's many more great questions. So Shakira, would you like to kick us off?
Yeah, I'm happy to. So thinking about the best way to kind of tackle this one, because I'm conscious I don't want to alienate anyone in the audience who's not coming at it from a mum angle. But when I think about this question, and it's how I thought I was going to kind of address this question today is different how I am going to address it. And it's based on some challenges that I've faced today. So I thought I'd share with you. So me as a woman, and actually I'm going to add it again as a mum, challenges I faced today were 2 sick kids, a sick husband, needed to be in the office, needed to have a key number of leadership planning meetings. So with that comes mum guilt, wife guilt, and then leadership guilt, work guilt. And so last night I had to make a decision. Do I go into the office? Do I try and rally around some family members to come and help at home? Do I leave my sick husband in bed trying to figure it all out? And the decisions I had to make yesterday were actually, no, I'm going to be at home with my family. I'm going to reprioritize my day. I'm going to explain to everyone that I work with what's going on for me at home, because actually my family are my priority. And then it comes down to like, actually, how do we as women and as working mums prioritize our life and our day? And even when I look at my own life and how I manage things day to day, my husband is kind of the primary carer. He works part-time and takes the role around the kids, but I'm kind of always on in mum mode, even though I'm on in work mode. So I'll be in a meeting and I'm thinking, did I get the gifts for the presents for the party the kids are going to this weekend? James, he's got, they've got a nursery dress up day. Did I get? And I'm thinking all these things. And my husband is amazing, but he will be thinking, got to take the kids to nursery, drop them off at nursery. He's quite task focused in the moment. So I think the challenge for women as a bigger topic is definitely, and women who are mums, is definitely thinking about everything. I think women in terms of in sales, I think you have the added pressure of that sales target and that sales goal. The reason why I think women are so good in the sales culture and environment is we can break things down into smaller tasks. And actually, we have the ability to look at the bigger picture, but figure out how we are going to project manage a sale, how we're going to tackle things in that way, in my opinion, my perspective. So yeah, I just thought I'd share that bit of personal stuff with you as well, because it's something that's hit me today.
Oh, no, I appreciate that so much. Thank you, Shakira. And my heart goes out to you. My sister has 2 kids, and everyone was sick recently. She also works. She's an attorney. And so I'm just like, when you started describing, I'm just like, oh, Shakira, I want to give you a hug. I know witnessing how hard that is. I haven't had to do it, so I can't say. But I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm sending you all the healthy vibes, Shakira. That is.
Thank you. As long as I don't go down, we're okay.
Stay strong. Do whatever you got to do. Do that self-care. Drink that tea, that zinc, and whatever you need to do. Because oh my goodness, that is so hard. So power to you, and just like, let's give Shakira a round of applause for being here right now. Come on, that is double, triple, quadruple duty. So
thank you.
Keep it in the now, you know. And I think it's just so important. I mean, what's also so great is that you were able to communicate that with ServiceNow, your people that you work with, and you're like, yeah, I just saw your expression. You're like, yeah, it was fine. Like they were great about it. And it's like, again, like highlighting the culture, right? Like you're able to like explain what was going on. You're being supported. You're still doing your work calls. You're on this event right now. You have like, you know, a sick ward behind you, and you're able to do all of this. And you're like, you know, it's amazing what you're able to do, and what many women in your scenarios also do. So power to you, and thank you for being, you know, present and personal with us. That means a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, well done, Shakira.
Yeah, Paloma.
So
tell me about all the terrible, hard things.
yeah, I know. It's like,
you know, I know, but and also like how you're able to handle it. You know, like the personal things that you face, that you know you witness, maybe other colleagues have faced. Yeah, really, this is I could listen to this, to us talk about this for an hour. So feel free to really anything that's getting your heart beating today.
Yes. So I think like listening to the story that Shakira shares, well, is that for me has been, if I look at the past, not now, but I guess around me is the lack of role models and women at the top. So I remember, and going back to Shakira in the story, there was this call that was put at 5:30, and it was by a man, and I remember having this conversation with someone who was at the top, who's another woman. It's like, well, you know, that is the worst possible time, because that is kind of when you kind of need to pick up your children and go back home, and it's the importance of having another role models at the top, so people start understanding some of these dynamics as well. The family dynamics is so important. And I remember being in an all hands, this was a long time ago, when I saw all men on the stage in a previous company, all having a laugh, and automatically I feel like I didn't belong. And how would I get there one day if I don't see anyone like me at the top, not just, let alone a woman, let alone someone for different ethnicity. I'm originally from Spain. So I think it's so important to have other people similar that you in meetings. You really feel more comfortable and easy to thrive and be authentic in those environments. That's how it works. And I'll give you another example. I remember, I mentioned this community of secretaries. The first edition of this I've done of this forum were full of white middle-aged men, and the conversations were very similar, and I felt like I wasn't able to contribute as much. And the feedback I had is like, Paloma, you need to have more diversity in the room. So it's kind of like I was contributing to the problem, and it's like, yes, it's true, I have to. And then the moment I changed the dynamic in the room, become more diverse workforce, not just from a gender perspective, from ethnicity perspective as well, the feedback changed completely. And also I was also to contribute more, felt much more comfortable in having those conversations. So, and I remember also asking someone to be a guest speaker, and she has a very senior role at a telco company, and I said, you know, I'd like you to speak in one of these events. And she said to me, I'll do it, but you need to invite someone from a BAME background. And I was like, okay, can you help me find someone? And she did, but because she was at the top, she was able to influence the audience and who we have in the room as well. I think women in power should be able to, control some of those decisions and change some of the mindset of people around you as well.
It's so important. Thank you for that. And you're getting, shout out there in the chat. Yep. So thank you for that. Also to circle back in the chat too, before we move on to the next question. Let's see. Well, Shakira said you completely agree with you there. So that's great. And also Aaliyah said earlier when Shakira was sharing that the mental burden is felt heavily by women, even when our partners are supportive. So kudos to you, Shakira. So it's absolutely fantastic. You also can see in the chat here that we have some folks from the DE&IB team at ServiceNow and wrote out. So the acronym BAM, BAME, is that how you say it? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
BAME, yeah. You want to, yeah, it's Black, Asian, and minority ethnic. So that's great to know. Thank you so much. Okay, so we have a question that came in from the chat, actually, that Shakira, I'm going to lob your way, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong. So Brittany asked, can you explain how important it is to have sponsors or leadership advocating for you? And that's a aspect that you're involved in, correct?
Yeah, sure. So I think it's really important. I think if you want to move your career forward, or you want to just be happy in an organization, you need a sponsor. The way I liken it with my teams, and it's just the same as when you're actually in sales yourself. You have sponsors when you're out there working on deals. You have champions when you're out there working on deals. It's the same about your own career. You want to have those same people backing you that you're actually internally, as when you're out there externally trying to sell to a customer. You want people to buy into you. You want people who are going to help you navigate through an organization. And I think if I look at what's helped me get to where I am internally at ServiceNow, it's definitely having both a mix of champions and sponsors. And when I talk about the difference, so a champion is somebody who knows that there's a win in it for them in terms of backing you and supporting you. A sponsor is somebody, typically there's not a personal win in it for them. They do it because they like you. They want to see you win and you succeed. And that's the difference for me between a sponsor and a champion. And I've been fortunate in my time here to have some amazing sponsors. And I think when you join an organization, or you're in an organization, look for the people who kind of want to help you, maybe speak at an event or introduce you to somebody or open up their network to you. They're typically people who are showing you that they're open and willing to be your sponsors.
I agree.
I love that. And you are also that for folks now. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love doing it. It's, it's quite fulfilling. It's massively humbling as well.
I love that. Well, how appropriate that you work at ServiceNow, and that truly is an act of service.
Yeah.
Sending the elevator back down, right? Okay, friends. Well, this is going so well. We have about 35 minutes left. So if you have any questions that are coming to mind, feel free to drop them in the chat. And as you see, we are peppering those in. So please keep them coming. And so in the meantime, we're going to bounce back over to our pre-submitted questions, also written by y'all. So thank you. So the next question is, we will bounce over to you, Paloma. And we have a question that says, how can we as women navigate power structures? And how can women support each other in their organization? So I love that we had a little sort of perfect segue here, a little bit from some mentorship.
So actually, I was gonna, I think sponsorship and what Shakira mentioned is incredibly important. Every time I've been able to advance my career was because of the sponsorship, less the mentorship. And then one of the best piece of advice that I've been given is we are sometimes focus too much on doing the work very hard, and specifically as women, we focus too much on the invisible, I call it invisible work. But we need to focus on the visible work. So sharing experience, what we're doing here today, because when you need a sponsor, it's often not who you know, but who knows you. And the only way for them to know you is for you to be visible with different areas, right? And you need to become your biggest cheerleader and be more vocal about what you do, as I mentioned. And one of the things that I had a coach who told me once, like, stop hiding behind the curtains, which at the time I didn't know what she meant, but I think I understood now, like, stop like working all those hours that no one is seeing what you're doing. Like, you need to be more visible. And I think on the power structures, of course, rely on other women, but rely on men and bring men into the journey so they understand how they can help you as well. I think there's a lot of supportive men around you, and we should take them in a journey as well. So that has been incredibly helpful for me. And Shakira mentioned the differences. I would say mentorship and a sponsorship. Mentorship is a one-way communication. You ask questions and the mentor will tell, probably has had that role before. He or she tell you this is what you should be doing. Whereas the sponsor is almost like a two-way, bi-directional. So obviously they will vouch for you. They have a position of power, but also they want a little bit something in return, right? So, and I give you an example. I'm working with a VP of social consulting. He has a little bit of a challenge and he's giving me a little bit of a task. And of course, he's kind of vouching me to do this work, but at the same time, he'll get something in return, of course, with a little bit of extra hours, but because I want to do it. So that's how I see that relationship working as well.
Thank you so much for that. I love that too. And we had a highlight from Jenny, what you were just saying here, said in the chat. I love this. It's about who knows you. I also love hearing what you were talking about, the invisible work versus the visible work, and you have to become your biggest cheerleader. I love that. Coming out from behind the curtains, as someone who comes from theater, I appreciate that metaphor. It's great to work backstage, but if you want to be in the spotlight, you got to come out from behind the curtains. So I love that. So that's fantastic. Okay, friends. So we have a question here that we can do with both of our speakers here. So Shakira, we'll start with you. What are the main soft skills that will help us thrive in sales?
So for me, I'd say listening is obviously probably the number one soft skill. Listen to your customers, listen to your sponsors, listen to your peers. But the one that really rings true most for me is coachability. So, and what I mean by coachability is actually being able to take the feedback from all areas and do something actionable with it. And I see the most coachable salespeople are the most successful salespeople. There's a perception sometimes that it's the early in career salespeople who can be the most coachable. But I see people across all organizations at all different tenures within sales, within the organization, at different coachability levels. And I think this is what can really make somebody successful in sales and what makes them thrive. I always look for that when I'm interviewing people. I look for that when I interview sales leaders. How coachable is somebody? And you can test coachability. It's very easy to test coachability during interview stages. If you give somebody feedback during that interview, and then when they meet somebody else in the organization, you get that person to test them on that particular thing. That's a really great way to simply test coachability. So yeah, and for me, it's kind of one of my hiring mantras, because you want someone to come into the organization and be open to and willing to learn, and have that kind of have that ethos with each other, right? Nobody comes into this knowing everything. None of us are the finished article, and we're all open and willing and eager to learn from each other. So that's kind of core to our culture as well. So yeah, that's my view.
I
Love
love
to hear what Paloma thinks too, because I know she's going to be boss on this.
that.
No, I love
Yes,
that.
please, Paloma.
I love that. And I'll share another story. So we were, and Shakira, you were at this event last week where we had, she was the chief data officer at Microsoft. She's now similar role at McKinsey. And when she finished her talk, someone approached her and asked the question, I was dying to ask you this question. And she said, what is it? And he said, what is more important, EQ, so emotional intelligence, or your intelligence, or IQ, EQ or IQ? And she said straight away, EQ. And, you know, I was listening to this conversation. And she was saying it's all around, and it's like, I feel it's true, your self-awareness, the impact you make on others, your, you know, self-regulation, how you adapt, your understanding of you create on others, and you adapt that in front of on each situation, and your social skills, your motivation, empathy, which is the hardest. I'm very much focused on results. So sometimes, you know, you shouldn't overlook the people's aspects, incredibly important. Like, you know, Shakira told her story this afternoon. So I would say that softer skills, incredibly important. And I remember working with I always say that one of the best reps I've ever worked as individual contributor. He was excellent at orchestrating the teams around him, his virtual teams. He would be very inclusive, almost you wanted to work for him, you know, you wanted to be part of his movement. He would connect with the customers at a very personal level. So he would have lunches, he would have coffees. The customers, sometimes they would confide in him and they'll tell the challenges they had with the children as well. He would adapt his style to the audience, but he'll never change who he was. He was very, very authentic. And I've learned a lot from him. So I want to share some of his characteristics here on the call as well.
Oh, I love that. Thank you, Paloma. And thank you both. I love the being that authentically yourself and yet still holding your integrity to what you do. And also with Shakira, when you were speaking of being open to feedback and being actionable on it, I love that. That's I think that's a helpful mindset for me to like click into. It's like, oh, okay, because I can receive feedback, but then what is it to be actionable about it? What am I going to do today that's actually implementing something? And it's good to know too, like, oh yeah, and then, you know, maybe we're being tested on the follow-up interview, which is like really cool because that also speaks to the communication of the team that you might be working for. They're like, oh, we're strategizing this. Let's see how it's going. It's not like they want you to fail. It's like, no, they want you to succeed because they want you to be, yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. Yeah. Love that. So I got a direct message, which I would like to touch on before we move on to the next one, because it circles back to the previous questions around sponsorship. So someone asked me, they said, thanks, Hunter. I am really loving this session. My question is, how to approach someone to be your sponsor, even if you just know them for a short time, but have successfully worked together. Either of you like to jump on this?
I'm happy to.
Yeah,
go tackle.
Yeah.
So I think it comes down to sort of, you know, my personal preference is just have that conversation, right? Have that conversation to know if that person has your back. You can set up a coffee with them, tell them, you know, this is what I'm looking to achieve in my career. I'm looking to grow in these areas. You're obviously not looking for a mentor, but if that person's going to offer you something, like offer you access to the network or want to set up another session with you, that's going to be, for me, quite telling that they're willing to be a sponsor of yours. And in a mentor relationship, it's much easier to ask somebody to be a mentor to you. And I think people shy away from You never say to somebody, or at least I've never said to somebody, oh, can you be a sponsor of mine? You can ask them to sponsor you to something, right? And maybe that's it. And I'm kind of doing this on the fly. I'd love Paloma's input. You can ask somebody to sponsor you for something or to somebody, and maybe that's a good test, right? It's like you identify. I always talk about champion building, and it's sponsor building as well. You identify who your sponsor is. You then have to develop them a bit. You can't kind of just go and jump and get them to back you straight away. So you've got to build that sponsor and that champion. You then got to test if they actually, do they back you? So ask them to do something for you. Ask them to, sponsor a meeting for you. Before you can actually then use them to be your sponsor. So I'd say to that person, if you've identified somebody that could potentially be a sponsor, invest in some time with them, see if they're going to be reciprocating of that relationship. And then ask for something. What do you think, Paloma?
No, I agree, and I guess from my experience on that is being more visible. So we talked about visibility and sharing more of what's your next career move, right? So if you don't share this with people, people will never know how to help you. Okay, that's the first thing. So you need to be willing to open up about, this is an area that I like to explore. And then people might not be able to help you right away, but then when something comes along, they say, oh, this person told me they were interested in exploring this. She might want to take this task, this project. But no matter, so I had an opportunity, when you have an opportunity to see an executive in the office or speak to someone a little bit more senior. I remember I had this meeting, someone came from the US and had this meeting. I was talking to my husband. I was like, I don't know, what should I talk about? I was saying, what should I talk about? And I remember my husband telling me, just be humble. He said to me, just be humble. Okay, so I went into this meeting, not thinking about anything, just be humble, tell me about my challenges, my personal challenge. Actually, he was quite senior, but I told him about like my personal challenges without, victimize myself. And then he kind of understood it, and then he gave me a few months later, he said, I've got this project, would like to take it on. So be humble, share your story, and be willing to open other areas where you like to explore, right? And sometimes that takes courage. So you need to be in the right frame of mind as well. So that would be my advice.
Love that.
Great tips. And your colleague, is it Naz? I'm sorry, I don't want to mispronounce your name. Yeah, from the DE and IB team. So this time of year, when we're wrapping up our objectives and thinking about next year, is the perfect opportunity to figure out who those people might be. Ask people for feedback on how they perceived you this year, and build those relationships and test the waters. That's fantastic. I love that, because that's implementing several things that we've talked about. That's talking about feedback. Can you accept feedback? Can you turn that into actionable feedback? How does it feel to receive that feedback from this person? Is that the type of feedback that you want? So that's like a self-care check-in there for your own career objectives. So what a well-rounded forms of advice from all three of you. Thank you. Okay, friends, so we have about 20 minutes left, so feel free to keep those questions coming. If not now, when? So now is the time. So I'll jump over to a pre-submitted question, which is, this is going to be for both of you all again. So what's your advice for someone that's looking to pivot into the sales industry without any industry related experience? Shakira, you want to start us off?
So I would say be prepared to be open and to learn first and foremost. We met with people who wanted to do that in the past and who've done it, and what I'd say is understand that sometimes you're gonna may need to take more of an entry-level role in sales, and at the time some people can find that frustrating, but what you learn in those more entry-level roles are the foundation of what it takes to build resilience in sales, to be tenacious, and to build up sometimes your just your core foundational sales skills, and that could be around cold calling or these sort of things. That said, there are opportunities and times when you can pivot, and I've seen people pivot really successfully from doing different roles. That means you don't have to go into like more of an entry level business development cold calling type role, where we've had people who've been in some quite entrenched technical roles, or they've come from other parts of the business within our customer base, for instance, and they've joined ServiceNow as an organization, and then they've gone into account management or support account management, and then into sales afterwards, because they've built a foundation. But what I'd say is look for that. This is when it's great to look for mentors within the organization, look and align with people internally, but really figure out what is it your goal is. Why do you want to make the move into sales? Is it because you've got financial objectives? Is it because you think you have an expectation around the actual role? I'd want to dig a little bit deeper. So that's like quite a broad question that's been asked there. So it's like 1,000,001 answers, right? If somebody was sitting in front of me and asking me that, I would want to uncover that a few levels. I want to peel off the layers of that question a little bit more.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Paloma, anything you'd like to add?
I think Shakira said it all, focus on those transferable skills. What are the reasons why you want to move? And then another thing that I would say is work on your personal brand. Think, you put it on the slide earlier. What is it unique about you that would make you thrive in a sales environment? Okay, so if you really want that job, think about what's unique about you that will make you successful. You don't have to have the perfect sales background. And when I remember applying for my first leadership role, I was prepping for it, and I wanted to sound the same, look the same, wearing the same clothes, have my hair up, wanted to, like, it was in quite a male dominated environment. It was in cybersecurity as well. So and the feedback I was given was that, no, you need to look different. You need to sound different. Anything you do needs to be different. So I saw an opportunity to demonstrate that, to elevate the role of the solution consulting or pre-sales, not just by using my technical skills, but in a more using my business skills. That it was something not many people were using. So I went for it. The feedback was like, you need to sound different. So I took a little bit of a risk to sound different. So yeah, be confident and embrace your differences in a good way, I would say.
Oh, I love that. Embrace your differences, take a risk. That's not easy to do. Easier said than done. It's very scary, isn't it?
Well, so that's why, and I don't know if it's going to come out later, that's why you need that circle of trust, right?
Yeah.
So before you take those leap of faith, like, make sure you have your circle of trust, your advisory board, that pushing you around and also becoming your cheerleaders as well.
Yeah, my friends and I will sometimes refer to that as our Fab Five. Like who is that? And that can be like trusted friend, that can be a mentor. My mom could be on that list. Like, it doesn't, it's getting that feedback. It's easy for me to like kind of get stuck in my own head and get in my own way with things and be afraid. And if I have that circle of trust that I can bounce ideas off of, and they can give me feedback that I value, it gives me that courage to maybe sometimes make those brave decisions that I might not have done if I had just stayed in my own head. And as many of you are witnessing, my good friend Francis is making an appearance this morning. He's like, it's time for pets.
Cute.
Time for pets, yes. So that's why I'm a little, if you see my hands doing this, he is wanting the love.
Is he a long-haired chihuahua?
That's exactly what he is. Do you have one?
No.
Yeah, most people.
I recognize the breed.
Oh, that's cool. I never thought I would be, a person with a chihuahua, but here we are.
It was the first time.
Life is full of surprises, friends.
He's lovely.
Oh, I love him so much. He's a delight. Okay, friends, we have about 15 minutes left. Okay, so we have so many great questions here. Oh, here's a fantastic question. And Shakira will pop over to you. How can emotional intelligence impact your professional growth? Without saying in every way,
Yes.
please expand.
Well, Paloma's already touched on actually some quite important pieces when she spoke around the event that we did last week. And yeah, it is like one of these, it is everything. So just even if you just look at emotional regulation, right, and it's just understanding how you react in a situation, and how I react as a senior sales leader now differs massively to how I reacted, years ago as an IC, and that's as I've got, sorry, IC, just caveat again, individual contributor as a rep, and that's me maturing emotionally during my role, and honing my, emotional intelligence is kind of there. It's an attribute that we look for when we hire people, but I think you can mature around that. So it's massively important in terms of your growth. I think when I spoke around coachability, EQ, emotional intelligence, is at the heart of being coachable. Can you pick up on those signals, right? I also use the term clock speed in terms of sales. So I talk about emotional intelligence and I talk about clock speed. So the reason I call it clock speed in the terms of sales, it's how do you react to something? How can you pick up on somebody's body language in a situation? How can you read the room? And then it's the same around personal growth. So are you in tune with what's happening? I mean, I could literally talk about this topic forever and a day. But it's going to impact your personal growth if you're not emotionally regulated. If you are somebody in a room that when a decision isn't going your way, or you're not believing that actually that decision's being made for the greater good of the business, whilst you might not always like things, the business is going on a certain trajectory and you need to align behind it. And it's your job as a leader to help bring everybody on that trajectory. Sometimes if that plays out within a room, you can have a dynamic where somebody doesn't emotionally regulate themselves, and it's the impact you have on those around you too. I think sometimes people don't realize that if they're not picking up on the signals from other people and they're just allowing their emotions to take over the room, or they're, I mean, I could literally wax on and, well, I was pinging Paloma earlier and I said I could talk glass eye to sleep, and I could literally talk glass eye to sleep about this topic, because for me it's at the heart of everything we do. It's at the heart of who we are.
Yeah. Well,
so I'm going to be emotionally intelligent and stop talking you all to sleep. So
save us.
I am also very passionate about this topic, so I feel you. And before we move on, maybe if you could give some tips of like for folks that for themselves, because it's our job to regulate our own emotions and it's someone else's job to regulate theirs, right? So it's that work that we need to do for us. So like, what are some tips that maybe have helped you in trying times, or things that you might suggest to other people, maybe a mentee that might be looking for improvement on this topic?
Yeah, so in the moment when I feel myself, when you get that ball of rage sometimes and it's going to come out, and it's something I actually do with my 4-year-old son. I say, smell the flower, blow the dandelion. So I literally will sit there, and sometimes you might see me in a room and I will just go, the dandelions that have like the little puff balls and you blow them. I will do that, and it is just breathing. And the more I feel that ball, the longer I will just take that breath. And it is just being mindful in that moment. And quite often, you'll just dissipate part of that feeling. I'd say that's my kind of one little takeaway for that. There's loads of others, but I'll just give you that one. Paloma, what do you do? Because you're always, you are like, and I'm asking because you are like the swan.
No, so mine is, I don't, so, when I get that that feeling. And sometimes it's over a Teams message, Teams message, or sometimes it's an email. I don't like hold space to give yourself 24 hours. Give yourself 24 hours. Don't have that difficult conversation on Friday afternoon, because you'll ruin the whole weekend and you'll ruin your family's weekend, right? So this my leader things like do not wait. And and sometimes what I do, sometimes I reply and save it. And wait until the following day. Save it, because it's like you're not gonna gain anything. And maybe yes, have that conversation before, but I will give myself time, right? And throughout the time, that things like I've had to do is like build that thick skin, right? And when people say, oh, you need to build, let things get to you, right? It's very easy to say, but when you are in that moment, it's harder. But I think, you talk about motherhood, and it has helped, right? It has helped, like obviously, getting more mature, it helps, but do not trying to give myself a space and remember that circle of trust, and little things like don't leave for Friday afternoon to have that difficult conversation. Having the morning, having Monday, don't ruin the weekend and your family's weekend. And the other thing I would say linked to emotional intelligence is the self-compassion and being more compassionate with yourself. So one of the things I've been recommended, they said, like what you should do, you should do more coaching, like professionally learn how to do executive coaching. Initially I thought, well, I don't know. I don't know, because there's a lot of listening involved, things I'm not very good at. So I thought maybe I should do it. So I embarked on this journey to become an executive journey. It's 3 years and 1.5 into it. And it has opened my eyes a lot. And not just working on myself and others. And the reality is that no matter what you go through, like the imposter syndrome, everyone has had imposter syndromes. And I've spoken to people who are very senior. They'll have the same challenges you all probably have, fear of failure, imposter syndrome, afraid of being found out. So, that has helped a lot, but it has put a lot of more work into my plate.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, we could, again, I feel like each one of these questions is so good, and we could spend an hour on each one of these, and I wish we could. I love what you were just, you were such an attention pup today. This is so good. Paloma, I love what you were saying about wait, pause, give yourself time. As Oprah says, the greatest gift we can give ourselves is time. And I love too what you're saying, like wait to bring something up that's challenging. And therapist I worked with, she was fantastic. She would say a little spin on a phrase that we're familiar with. She would say, strike when the iron is cold. It's like, once I've cooled down, then let's talk about it with so-and-so, and I love too, Shakira, the smell the flower, blow the dandelion. That's such a beautiful, like, it's so practical, but also like it's inviting a breath, but it's also inviting the imagination to go somewhere for a moment, which I love that we can do as adults. We just did this chat and learn a panel on play, like bringing play back into the workplace. And that's just like a little one we can do for ourselves. And if you want to go on the medical, level, like when you give your brain more oxygen, you're actually putting chemicals into your body that help you bring your cortisol levels down. So if you want to get all like imaginative with me in Playland, we could talk about that. We could also talk about neuroscience. They all work. So thank you for bringing all that stuff in. Yes, Naz. Yes, +1, folks. Okay, so we are at the 5-minute mark, friends. I can't believe we are already here. There are more questions. We're not going to get to all of them. We emotionally prepared for that, Shakira and Paloma. We're like, we're not going to get to all of them, probably, but maybe we will. Guess not. Unfortunately not. But I love to, Paloma, you were talking about imposter syndrome. Before I pull up the last slide, you were talking about how it affects all of us. Can we touch on that a little bit? Because I feel like that is universal feeling of like how to combat that, you know, and how to handle that and how to move through it and past it and hopefully over it. Paloma, is there anything you'd like to touch on with imposter syndrome? You yeah.
I guess this is a tough one. Okay, so one of the things let's focus on tips, right? Like let's focus on things that people can do.
Yeah,
I've learned recently that the imposter syndrome is that, you know, that person or whatever it is that's telling you, oh, you know, what you're saying, you don't know about this, what you're talking about. So I've recently come across this concept that you need to label your inner critic. So this is, you need to give it a name. So initially when I heard it, I don't know. So since the typical when you have to do a big presentation and you get all these nerves and you get this. So actually I label it, and I don't mind sharing it on the call, the name of my my inner critic is called a Stuart. I don't know anyone whose name is Stuart, so I'm sorry for all the Stuarts in the world. But that's his name. And then you know, when you get that feeling, it's like, Stuart, go away. And actually, I don't know. I think there's research about it. It has helped. So like label it and get rid of it.
I love that. I also have named mine. And you know the phrase a vicious circle? One time I was talking, like when you're like, oh, it's a vicious circle. I was saying that to my brother one time. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what did you say? He said vicious circle. I'm like, we were talking about the inner critic. He's like, oh, I thought you said vicious gerbil. So, so it's like a guy, mine is like a gerbil on a hamster wheel, you know, telling me just all these terrible things about myself. He's just this really mean little butch gerbil. I'm like, okay, vicious gerbil, it's okay. None of that's real. Shakira, do you have any pro tips on this topic before we?
Yeah, so for me, so imposter syndrome comes up like all the time. It came up just as me coming back from my second mat leave this year, and mine comes up in a funny way as well. Like mine just doesn't come up in me sitting in a room thinking, oh, I feel really bad. Like I'll sometimes see somebody achieve something or do something, and I'll see that and I'll think, oh, I feel really bad about myself, and I think I'm not good enough, I can't do this. And actually what I've done, I've read a book called Manifest by Roxy Nafushi recently, and it's about how do you actually turn that imposter envy, how do you turn it around and go, I'm so excited for what they're doing, and I would love to be able to do something like that too. Like I want to lean into them and learn from them. And I've even got goosebumps talking about it now, because it's actually been such a big development for me, even in the last month, to lean more into people that I aspire to be more like and feel less like an imposter trying to be an imposter to them. So that for me would be, when you feel yourself having those feelings, catch it, realize why you feel that, and try and lean in more to the people that you look up to and find inspirational.
Absolutely. That is so good. I'm dropping that resource in. I haven't read it yet, so I'm going to add that to my reading list. And that is not the slide that I want to share. Do you see the full screen of the slides, or is it just my screen of the book?
Not yet. It says
you see the slide?
Double click to enter full screen mode.
Oh, okay. Mine is being funky. Sorry about that. Let me do this one last thing. So friends, we're going to wrap it up here with this last slide here. We asked a few questions in advance, and we're going to go down those. And in the meantime, too, I just want to say thank you both for making the time today. And what are the best ways that folks can stay connected to you?
LinkedIn usually looks.
LinkedIn is the way to do it. Okay, great. So friends, I know we're just at time. I just want to make sure we get this up real quick. We started 1 minute late. I apologize. So, oh, are you doing it? Oh, thank you, Erica. Thank you. Technical difficulties. See, we don't always have to do it alone. We need a team. So getting real with the team, extra real. How would you describe the culture in one word? Paloma said, motivating. What's your favorite part about working at ServiceNow? Shakira said the culture, which we got to hear quite a bit about. Thank you. And what are the top tips for someone who is interviewing? Paloma and Shakira wrote together, always try to sound different. What's unique about you and about you that you want others to know. Tell your story, come out from behind the curtain, right? So let's give a round of applause to our speakers today and also to the ServiceNow team that was working tirelessly behind the scenes in the chat and giving their feedback and insight. Thank you all so much, and I hope you have a great rest of your day, and feel free to find our team on LinkedIn, and be sure to check out the landing page at Power to Fly, and you can see all the job listings they're hiring. So it'll be a great place to work, clearly. All right. Thank you, friends, and have a great day. Thanks, Paloma.